In the vast expanse of the cosmos, where countless species navigate the delicate dance of galactic politics, sometimes the most profound changes begin with the smallest of moments. This is the tale of Lucas Komodo, once a bright-eyed cadet in the Terran diplomatic corps, whose culinary ambition altered the course of interstellar relations forever. Picture, if you will, the Galactic Cultural Exchange Gala, the crowning jewel of diplomatic functions, where species from across the stars gathered to share their heritage. Young Lucas, passionate and idealistic, had argued vehemently against the usual boring displays of fossils and geological surveys. Culture isn't a fossil, he'd insisted with that fire that only youth possesses. It's alive. It's something you experience through taste and smell and texture. It's the story of a people told in a language everyone understands, food. And so his booth became a gleaming mobile kitchen, a shrine to the chaotic, beautiful art of human cooking. The crowds were mesmerized. Imagine creatures who had never experienced the magic of caramelization or the simple miracle of dough rising, watching with compound eyes and sensing appendages as Lucas crafted delicacies that to us seem commonplace. But fate, my friends, is a trickster with a peculiar sense of timing. Enter Admiral Tyrion of the Armatrine, Dominion, beings of absolute order, whose nervous systems perceive the complex fractal geometries of hyperspace itself. These gatekeepers of the galaxy controlled the very hyperspace lanes that made interstellar commerce possible. The Admiral approached Lucas's booth with the clinical curiosity of a scientist examining a strange specimen. "Cadet," he intoned, his voice a resonant baritone that seemed to absorb the very sounds around him. "Explain this composite." He was pointing at a platter of California rolls. Lucas, beaming with pride, explained the harmony of vinegared rice, imitation crab, avocado, and cucumber wrapped in dried seaweed. The Admiral seemed intrigued, especially by the small mound of vibrant green paste. "And this?" he inquired. "Ah, that's wasabi," Lucas replied. "A rhizome ground into paste. It provides a brief pungent heat. A little goes a long way." Perhaps he should have emphasized that last part more emphatically. Perhaps he shouldn't have placed such a generous, perfectly formed dollop beside the roll. Perhaps fate simply decided that the galaxy needed shaking up. The Admiral, a being who approached every experience with methodical thoroughness, dipped the entire end of his sushi roll into the wasabi mound and placed it in his mouth. For one breathtaking moment, pure shock registered on the Admiral's face, a creature of perfect order experiencing true, beautiful chaos for the first time. His eyes widened in an expression of astonishment never before seen on an Armatrine face. Then his eyes rolled back, and he collapsed. The hall erupted in pandemonium. Medtechs rushed forward as the Admiral's guards formed a protective circle, weapons drawn. The Armatrine ambassador began shouting orders in her harsh, clicking language. And Lucas stood frozen, chopsticks in hand, watching the most powerful military leader in the Armatrine Dominion twitching on the pristine floor of the gala. The fallout was swift and merciless. The Dominion, terrified by what they perceived as an unregulated chemical attack, threatened to close the hyperspace lanes, a move that would have collapsed galactic commerce overnight. A deal was struck. A scapegoat was needed. And thus was born the infamous headline that would define Lucas's life. The Council outlaws human food after one bite nearly kills an admiral. The Galactic Human Cuisine Prohibition Act reclassified human cooking from a cultural art form to potential bioterrorism. Anything requiring a recipe, from sauces to stews, from tacos to pizza, was banned throughout Council space. And Lucas Komodo, the young man who just wanted to show the galaxy how amazing a good meal could be, became its first and most infamous criminal. 3 years later, we find Lucas and his crew aboard the Flying Skillet, a battered cargo hauler held together by spit and willpower. His companions, Fez, a compact woman with grease-streaked hands and unparalleled piloting skills, and Hesh, a massive Lithian enforcer whose stoic nature belied a newfound spiritual connection to human cuisine. The most dangerous part of selling contraband, samosas, wasn't the act itself. The law was merely a set of badly written rules spawned from galactic hysteria. No, the danger came from the clientele. Twitchy, paranoid, and invariably armed. We joined them in a grimy back alley stall on Scrapfall, facing a Grulian broker whose name sounded like cutlery falling downstairs. His stalk eyes swiveled nervously, one fixed on Lucas, the other on Hesh's immovable bulk, while a plasma charred, hold-out blaster peeked from beneath his jacket. "The credits are verified," Lucas said with practiced smoothness, holding up a polished thermal case. "The product is hot, fresh, and contains the ratio of potato to spiced pea filling you requested. But this transaction, like so many in their dangerous trade, was a setup." Behind the Grulian, the air distorted as two syndicate enforcers materialized, their cloaking fields failing to reveal much larger blasters. Lucas's mind raced. His hand shot into the case, grabbing a samosa, not as a bribe, but as a weapon. With a flick of his wrist, he flung the steaming filling directly at the broker's face. The Grulian shrieked as his sensitive ocular membranes registered what felt like liquid fire in that moment of confusion. Hesh moved with surprising speed for his size, cracking the thugs' helmets together with a sickening crunch. And it was a mad dash through crowded market streets to their ship, where Fez awaited with engines primed. "Did you get paid, or did you start a food fight again?" Her dry voice crackled over the comms. "Option B, docking bay 94. Go, go, go." What followed was a harrowing chase through the cityscape, Fez weaving their ship through traffic lanes and maintenance corridors with the finesse of an artist, eventually slingshotting them into the cold quiet of space. But the life of culinary outlaws is never stable. With their ship damaged and credits non-existent, they faced the hard reality of their situation until a mysterious encrypted message appeared on Lucas's datapad. Chicago-style deep dish pizza. Delivery to the Oracle system. Payment, 500,000 credits. The Oracle system in Armatrine, military fortress where no smuggler would dare venture. The pizza, a pinnacle of human culinary art requiring rare, illegal ingredients. The payment enough to buy freedom and a future. "It's insane," Lucas whispered, even as his mind raced through the culinary challenge. "We'd need a specific strain of earth yeast, high-fat mozzarella, fennel-spiced sausage, ... It is a noble quest," Hesh rumbled, his voice filled with reverence. "It's a payday," Fez corrected pragmatically. "The biggest we've ever seen." With a 250,000 credit advance appearing in their account, they set course for Umbra, 9 Moon, a lawless rock where one could acquire antique microorganisms and other contraband necessities. Their shopping expedition was a masterclass in misdirection and negotiation, Lucas securing precious yeast from a creature named Pleeks, who collected stories of creation, Fez orchestrating a distraction to swipe misplaced tomato pulp, and Hesh's poetic negotiation for smuggled mozzarella. Meanwhile, Inspector Zanin of the Council Enforcement Division, a Geishan whose entire philosophy was built on logic and the rejection of emotion or flavor, had been tracking them. His subordinate reported unusual purchases traceable to a single credit drop: high-fat bovine dairy solids, processed porcine meat with fennel, tomato pulp, and rare earth-strain yeast spores. "Deep dish pizza," Zanin murmured, the words distasteful in his mouth. He plotted an intercept course, determined to restore order to a galaxy threatened by the chaos of human cuisine. Back aboard the flying skillet, Lucas began his ritual. Where the Council saw chaos, he saw architecture, the controlled activation of yeast, the precise layering of ingredients, the careful balance of flavors. He pressed thick dough into a circular pan, layered it with reverence, a blanket of sliced mozzarella, then sausage, and finally a generous ladle of rich tomato sauce. A masterpiece of edible engineering. But as they cleared Umbra 9's atmosphere, proximity alarms blared. The Gavel, Xanon's sleek pursuit vessel, had found them. "Warning," came the cold, synthesized voice. "You are in violation of the Galactic Human Cuisine Prohibition Act. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded." Fez, never one to surrender, plunged them into a treacherous asteroid field. What followed was a heart-stopping dance through tumbling rocks the size of small moons. Ion blasts sizzling past their viewport, shields failing, and the precious uncooked pizza sliding precariously toward the edge of a counter before Hesh's quick reflexes saved it with one final, desperate maneuver. A gravity-assisted slingshot around a dwarf star, they escaped. But the victory was bittersweet. The hyperdrive was completely fried, leaving them stranded in an empty system with a half-baked pizza and a mission that seemed increasingly impossible. Stranded on Dreg 7, a desolate moon housing nothing but a sprawling scrapyard and a cantina built from pure despair. Our intrepid culinary outlaws faced their darkest hour. Fez worked tirelessly on the hyperdrive, but the news was grim. The primary coil was slag, irreparable with the scrap available. Meanwhile, in the ship's galley, Lucas decided he couldn't wait. The dough wouldn't last forever. He fired up the oven to pre-bake the crust, and soon an intoxicating aroma filled the cramped confines. The rich, warm scent of baking bread, melting cheese, and savory tomato sauce. It was the smell of home. Fez emerged from the engine room covered in grease, her usual hard edges softened by hunger. Hesh swallowed audibly, a sound of pure primal desire. The temptation to abandon the mission and enjoy this one perfect creation was overwhelming, but Lucas stood firm. "It's for the client," he said, covering the partially baked pizza. "Fez, how's the hyperdrive?" "It's shot. I can't rebuild the coil with what they have here." They were trapped, with the smell of the perfect, unattainable pizza filling the silence. But Lucas, gazing at the ancient star charts, noticed what might be their salvation: the Serpent's Run, a natural subspace rift, a fold in space-time that led almost directly to the Oracle system. The old prospectors called it a shortcut, he explained. Excitement building. If we hit it at exactly the right speed and angle, using a series of gravity wells for acceleration, we could skip across its surface like a stone on water. The calculations showed terrifying probabilities and infinitesimal margins for error. The G-forces would be crushing. The navigation would require nanosecond precision. Fez grinned dangerously. Finally, something interesting. The maneuver was terrifyingly beautiful. They skimmed Dreg 7's atmosphere, using its gravity to fling them toward a distant neutron star. The ship groaned as they hit the first gravity well, then were whipped around the star, the view outside distorting into a tunnel of stretched light. For the final push, they used a gas giant's immense pull for critical course correction and acceleration. Instead of being torn apart, the flying skillet settled into a surreal calm, sliding along the edge of the rift, a river of roiling purple-black energy carrying them at unimaginable speeds. They emerged with a jolt into the orderly space of the Armatrine military zone, where a stunning orbital habitat hung against the backdrop of a nebula. An Armatrine cruiser immediately locked onto them. Unidentified vessel. "You have entered a restricted zone. State your identity and purpose." "Delivery for the Admiral," Lucas replied shakily. "We have his deep dish composite." Remarkably, they were escorted to a private viewing deck where Admiral Tyrion himself awaited, looking out at the stars. "Mr. Komodo," the Admiral said, his voice a low rumble. "You are more resourceful than your service record indicated." To Lucas's astonishment, rather than arrest him, the Admiral apologized. The Wasabi incident had been a biological anomaly that cost Lucas his career, and Tyrion was genuinely sorry. But that wasn't why he had summoned them. You must understand the Armatrine psyche, he explained, his voice intense with intellectual fervor. We are beings of order. Our minds perceive the universe as a series of complex but logical equations. When I consumed your food, I experienced a beautiful, terrifying, exhilarating chaos of sensation that my mind is still struggling to categorize. I have spent 3 years studying that moment and reached a conclusion. What you do is not merely combining ingredients. It is a form of art that introduces deliberate, calculated chaos into a biological system. And I must understand it. Just as Lucas was about to open the thermal case, alarms blared. Security breach. Inspector Zanen had infiltrated the station by posing as waste management oversight, exploiting a logical blind spot in even the most secure Armatrine system. Lucas Komodo, Zanen announced, plasma pistol raised. You are under arrest for the creation, transportation, and intent to distribute a class, a unregulated protein-carbohydrate composite. The standoff was absurd. A decorated admiral, the galaxy's most wanted chef, his crew, and a fanatical inspector, all staring at each other over a pizza. Before you arrest us, Lucas said steadily, the law requires you to analyze the evidence, to fully understand the nature of the crime. He lifted a perfect triangular slice, cheese stretching in glorious strands, and held it out. Zanen scoffed, but the admiral ordered him to comply. Bound by his code, the inspector took a bite. For a Gishan, the experience was cataclysmic. The flavor was a data storm, a sensory tsunami that crashed through every firewall in his brain. His rigid, orderly worldview didn't just crack. It shattered. To follow the law was to deny this new, profound data. To accept the data was to break the law. The paradox threatened to crash his entire consciousness. Then came clarity. There was only one logical path forward. Acquire more data. The experiment must be repeatable. And for that, the source, the artist, could not be compromised. Zanen slowly raised his hand to his comlink. Inspector Zanen to bridge. My sensor logs are malfunctioning. The smuggler's ship appears to have vanished into a solar flare while resisting arrest. He looked at Lucas with newfound respect. Be more discreet in the future, Mr. Komodo, he said stiffly before departing. Admiral Tyrion laughed, a booming, joyous sound that echoed through the vast chamber. He slid a heavy credit chip across the table. This is not the end, the Admiral declared, taking a thoughtful bite of pizza. It is the beginning of a delicious new partnership. I have a list. Tacos, something called a Reuben sandwich, a chili dog, ... quotes, and so, dear listeners, we come to understand how a dollop of wasabi changed the course of galactic history, how a Chicago deep dish pizza breached the defenses of the most logical mind in council space, and how 3 unlikely heroes, a disgraced chef, a brilliant pilot, and a philosophical enforcer, found triumph in the most unexpected of places, the universal language of food. For in a universe of countless species and infinite differences, perhaps there is no bridge more powerful than the simple, profound pleasure of a well-prepared meal, shared in good company beneath the endless stars.